Good to see you're snapping to attention, Jim.
Thank you,
I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular council meeting today. Mayor Ives is at the Shellfest kickoff reception in Vancouver. Hence, as acting mayor, I will be chairing today's meeting. So thanks in advance for your patience with me, and thanks, Shelley, for being close to me as well. I'd like to call for an adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have one delegation this evening, and I'd like to welcome Wendy Lewis with the business survey results. Welcome, Wendy. You have our attention for a maximum of 10 minutes.
All right. Apparently, I just have to talk really fast. Can you guys see me if I stand back here? You're all good? Okay. There we go. So I just wanted to give you guys an update. Some of you, I'm not sure if anybody that's actually in this room now, I know your Mayor Paul Ives was at our presentation that we did in January. We being MNP in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce and the Comox Valley Economic Development Society did a business leaders survey. It's the second time we've done it. We did another one back 2 years ago, and we purposely did them 2 years apart so we could sort of gauge what's happening with business in our community. So I think you've got a bunch of slides in your presentation, so I'll kind of go through a few of the highlights for you. And if you want more information, then after my 10 minutes, you can email me or something like that, and I can send you more. All right. So, slides. Here we go. What am I doing? There we go. So, second time the survey was done, publicly released January 19th, so we already chatted about that. So key things about the methodology, we had a third-party research firm who did them, and they had a total number of businesses in the valley of 854 businesses that were on their roster that potentially could have been called. Their mandate was to call until they got CEOs or people who actually owned the businesses for 200 businesses, so that we weren't talking to employees, we were actually talking to business owners. And they ended up contacting 321 businesses to get 200 answers and people who were there and available to answer their calls. So it was CEOs, owners, presidents, that sort of thing. When you look at where the businesses were located, so remember that you got 200 businesses, so when we talk about 20.5% came from the town of Comox, that means we touched 41 businesses that were located in Comox. Obviously a bigger portion in the city of Courtenay, and then a whole bunch of regional districts and a little bit of the village of Cumberland. Key thing to note here, this slide looks busy, but there's a couple things that you should really focus on. The first thing is we had a lot of retail trade business, and I'm going to take you to the next slide because I think almost more important than who we did talk to is who we didn't get equal representation of. So what you'll see is that when we talked to businesses, retail trade was 24% of our survey, but when you look at the Comox Valley businesses, only 13% of the businesses are actually in retail trade. And when you look at who's well underrepresented, you can see that our survey touched 4% construction industry, whereas the construction industry is actually 14%. And it was interesting, when we did our main presentation, we had a representative there from the construction industry, and we did our survey in November of 2015. And, sorry, not 2015, 2016. And when we called, it was those rainy times in November. You know, we had boil water advisories in Courtenay and all sorts of things like that. And the fellow from construction said, you know, if you're going to call and ask to talk to business owners, construction guys in the middle of November at the top of their ladder in the rain, and they get the call saying, can you take 5 minutes for a survey, are much less likely to answer that call than somebody sitting inside their retail store where it's a little warmer and drier and might have a few minutes to talk to us. So something that we're going to focus a little bit, doing perhaps a little differently if we do the survey again. But it's important to note that because it skews some of the results of the survey. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the results. Profile of participants. So this talks about how many years your company's been in business, and we tended to talk to more mature businesses. You can see there that 11 to 25 years, 32%, 26 to 50 years, 25%. So that's a reasonably good profile of businesses who have been around a while. And then how many employees? because really there's an awful lot of businesses around included in that 854 that would have maybe 1 or 2 employees, and we certainly ended up talking to businesses that had more than that. So 1 to 4 employees was 36%, 5 to 9, 24. So slightly bigger businesses than probably your average business would have been. Isn't this fun? Now we get into the results. So the full survey had a whole bunch of questions. What you guys have is a really abbreviated version. So we had a few questions that we asked where we asked them, what are the biggest limitations and business challenges that your business is facing? This first slide had a limited number of answers, meaning that we said, is it uncertainty about local economic conditions? And they could say yes or no, which is why your response rates are really high. The next slide we'll look at is we asked an open-ended question about what specific limitations your business is facing, and there you'll see we get much lower numbers, but they're not off of a slated list of responses. Does that make sense? So when you look at this, it says, is your business limited by uncertainty about the economy? 55% said yes. Lack of skilled labor, 41.5, tied with local government regulation and approvals. Does that one surprise you guys? So also at 41.5%. And then transportation and shipping costs, almost always an issue for us on the island, so that one came in high as well. We're going to talk about a couple of those. We delved a little farther into the sort of lack of skilled labor, because when we asked about business challenges and what that meant, there was really a couple of things that came out of that, because we're seeing a lot in business right now, especially with the changes that have happened in Alberta, that there's more people that have come back home that perhaps are skilled tradespeople and looking for work. The interesting thing is that the response we got to that question said, yes, there's some of those people around, but not all of them are looking for work at wage rates that we can support in our local business community, because they've been away and they're used to working for much higher rates, and they haven't yet sort of recalibrated to what it means to being paid market rate in the Comox Valley. So interesting. And if you recall, back in 2009-ish, we were all just looking for warm bodies to fill seats because we couldn't find that skilled labor. The economy changed a little bit. We've had a bit of a reprieve. There's certainly a feeling out there that we're going to see that labor shortage, that skilled labor shortage, come back at us again. So greatest challenge facing your company in the next 12 months. This was the open-ended question where they weren't given a slate of things to respond to. So managing growth, expansion, and change, which sounds really positive, but you have to remember that when you have somebody writing down those things, they're putting their ticks in a whole bunch of categories. So some of the things that get included in there, so you see you have 13% at the top, and then at the fourth one down you say attracting more business clients and donors. And a little bit, those almost go together, because what people are saying is change in their business. Sometimes it can be positive, and there's lots of respondents that say, you know, my business is growing, I have to learn how to keep up, or there's changes in my industry, I need to focus on that. But I also need to figure out how to get more people in the door and how to make a profit at the end of the day. So certainly a big part of the responses was that. Skills shortage and finding the right people comes up again. And then government policy and regulation. Now, in the package that you guys have in your notes, one of the things that we did for council, we did the same thing for court and council, is we included in your notes specific detail, and you'll find that you have all of the verbiage of the individual responses that everybody gave that you can really look through and see, so that if you're sort of wondering what they're saying local government can do differently to help with that, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Because you guys, not just you guys, everybody comes up a lot in government policy and regulations. There it is. What is the greatest challenge? So you guys have this all in your notes, and we put it there because we thought it might be interesting for council to read through. All right, yeah, this one is good for you. So this is attitude on government performance. Would you say the local government has been doing a poor job, only a fair job, a good job, or an excellent job in terms of creating a good climate for business? And as you can see, when you look at the graphs there, the 2005 blue ones are our 2015 survey, and then the red ones are our 2017. So here's where we're seeing trending and seeing, not just what are people's responses in general about government, but what are they saying differently this time than when we did it 2 years ago. And you can see that our goods and fares have increased to 36 and 43% from 28 and 34. So that sounds reasonably positive. Remembering again who your audience is, and I don't mean to temper it and say anything bad, but I think you would have found in some cases, if you had talked more to a construction industry group, that you might have had more of a big challenge in having those rise quite as high as they did. Not that you're not doing great, that's not what I meant. All right. So what's the one thing local government could do to improve the business climate here in the Comox Valley? We asked it. They said, cut bureaucracy, decrease the roadblocks to development, lower taxes. Is there anybody who ever doesn't say that? As an accountant, you know, we hear it every day. And then, of course, infrastructure improvements. But by far, the cutting bureaucracy and roadblocks to development. And if you don't mind, I'll take a 30-second aside and say, I work a lot, and part of the reason that we sponsor the survey, and it's important to me that we understand the data that comes out of it, and I work a lot in the construction industry. It's what my clients, a lot of them, face. And when we chatted about this afterwards with the local Development and Construction Association, one of the things they said, Wendy, if we had more to say, the thing we would have passed on to council is that we just need surety of process. If we bring something that needs to be done and we're told a list of things that we need to comply with and we need to have happen, and we spend the money and we make those things happen, we need then to not have a second list of to-dos that need to be done. And when they talk about cutting bureaucracy and roadblocks to development from the construction sector, that was the message I was specifically asked to bring. So there you go, I pass that on. All right, again, you get all of the feedback in terms of what people actually say. We asked the job about the Chamber of Commerce. What kind of job do you think they're doing to represent local business in the community? And you can see that, for the most part, responses were pretty good. 48.5% said a good job, and very few that said poor job. Economic successes. This is interesting. Again, of course, the best economic successes and people naming anything, so no list given. Airport comes in at number 1. Hospital expansion moved up the list a little bit this year. Downtown renewals and improvements, I think that includes both communities. And then the interesting thing is if you took other festivals and events and then included Vancouver Island Music Festival, both at 7%, overall, festivals were seen as being a pretty big part of the community. That's 14% combined, which puts them right up near the airport, which I thought was a bit of a surprising result there. All right, and there's all of the things that people did say. And I think I'm out of time, so I think I'll leave it there. There's a whole bunch more in your notes, and if you have questions, I'm free.
Yes, well, questions, entertain questions from councillors now. We'll start with Councillor Ken Grant.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, as I read this, if there's a way in the future that we could break this down by community, because we spent a lot of time over the last few years cutting our red tape, putting incentive programs in. We have a program where we do cut our business tax every budget, and so it kind of gets skewed a little bit, because I know that I don't think Courtney's doing a lot of those things, or not to the point that we are. So it would be really nice to see if ours is actually working or not.
Well, it would be interesting if we could slice and dice the data that way.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can, but I'm fairly certain that we might be able to, because we certainly ask each respondent which community, which community do you come from, and then to be able to do that. It's always a question, unfortunately, of cost in terms of how much it costs to get a whole bunch more information, but it's certainly something we can put in our mix and request.
So I know a lot of the construction guys do it the same way you do. A lot of them are saying that ours is a lot better. Not perfect, but better, and that that we're working in the right direction, and they're a lot happier than they were.
Do you know, to be fair to you and to Courtney, I hear that is true. I hear that there are improvements being made and that there are efforts being made to go that way. I'm just not sure that they're all the way there. And you're going to always get individual stories where it didn't work as you'd like it to.
It'll never be perfect. Unless there's no regulation, we do. But your other point that I had written down here too was that I think the construction industry, they're the ones that really complain a lot about the red tape, so it's kind of interesting that they didn't really participate as much in the survey, because they certainly don't mind phoning me, but when you give them a chance to have a voice, they didn't show up. So that would be good to, perhaps it was timing, I don't know, but it would be good to get their voice in there a little bit more, so.
Yes, Wendy, thank you for passing that on, information, as I know it was part of our strategic plan to deal with the red tape, and we felt pretty good about it because there was positive feedback that came back. But certainly we need constructive criticism as well in order to improve. At least we need to hear it so that we can look at it and see if it's an area that we need to focus on. Other members of council comment?
Only a quick comment, because this issue is obviously at the heart of all of us sitting at the council table. But I wanted to say thank you, Wendy. That was good, and we appreciate this information.
Perfect. You're welcome.
Very, very thorough.
Thanks.
Useful information for us. Thank you very much. Okay, moving along with the agenda, folks, I'd now like to call on adoption of the regular council meeting minutes from March 1st meeting.
Move approval. Second.
Thank you. Committee reports, there are none. Sorry. Oh, excuse me. Vote to accept the minutes from March 15th, or March 1st, I should say. Okay, thank you. Carried. Unfinished business. Management report.
Move receipt.
Second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
I will move receipt of the regional district minutes for February 28th.
Before we move on from that, I'm just wondering if Shelley can enlighten us as to whether the application for the Backline Trust has gone in?
It has not at this point. It's still with the lawyers, getting close.
Do we have any sense of when?
I do not know. I'm sorry. I can get back to you with that.
It's been close for some time. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, and just with that, I'm wondering, so the town has done all it needs to do, so it is, everything that we needed to do is now with the lawyers? Or are they waiting, or, I know we're putting you in a tough spot here because you may not know.
That's fine. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been a bit of a back and forth in terms of getting all of the background material available, and so that's what's taken the time is digging up the background material and providing it.
Thank you.
So it's proceeding. Okay, in regards to special reports then, the Comox Valley Regional District minutes.
Move receipt.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Okay. The bylaws, we have none. The new business, the development variance permit application, DBP 17-1 for 1921 Merino Place.
The recommendation?
I'll second that.
Any comments on that? Put to a vote then, all those in favor? I understand all the requirements have been met. And next item is planning report 17.5, the CBRB referral, the review, 5-year review of the regional growth strategy. And the recommendation is that there's no need to review the strategy further.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? The next item is a request, a call for adoption, a recommendation, and our discussion. Next item is a request for an amendment of the Comox Fire Department regulation bylaw, a letter request, and by the campground owners of Cape Basil, a call for a move to receive the letter.
I'll move that, and I'd like to request that we take the first recommendation, that being we allow this to be in the off-season months. I'm trying to quickly talk and find the recommendation. Here it is here. That's supportive.
Perhaps we should receive it first and then make a recommendation.
Second
While
to
you were
receive.
doing the...
Sorry, I'm talking and trying to flip through it quickly here, so.
So go with receipt first
Yes.
and then make the recommendation.
Yeah. So we'll move receipt.
Second.
Right.
Okay, Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Can we have a vote for that then? All those in favor of the motion?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Discussion.
So I would like to move option number 1 is to amend the fire prevention and regulation bylaw.
Second.
Which would allow them to have burning in their
Which would
fireplace.
allow them to be burning in the off-season months. What is that, from September to May, I believe?
I guess page 42, is that
Yeah.
the one? Is that
Yeah.
the wording?
Okay, and just,
So we would be amending the current bylaw to allow this to happen in the wood burning in the winter months as well.
and so it's clear to members of council and the public, and more importantly, that it should be clarified that this issue refers to outside burning only, that council is reminded that it's only outside burning allowed according to our bylaws passed by council. The other properties that are affected, there's 2 property farms, both they're required to be over 4 hectares and within the agricultural land reserve, and the Cape Lazo campground has in the past been given awarded permission with a bylaw to have outside burning at individual campsites. So this is going to consider burning at the common structure, the fireplace there.
Yeah, so I'd just like to add to this that when the campground was initially built, they were outside of the town of Comox. They were then brought in, then they were impacted with our current bylaws that there was no outside burning. It was amended. We then changed it around a little bit to allow the season to open up a bit more for them to burn. And I think what we're doing is just trying to help a business out, because that's what they are. They are a business. And we're looking at this outdoor pavilion, which is a fireplace. And the only difference between that and any house in that area is that it's missing 3 walls. If you were to put 3 walls on that, it would be like any other house that's burning in the winter there. And I think under the circumstances, it's a good move, being mindful of the issue, the current issues around burning. But here's a business. I don't think you're going to be seeing burning every single day of every hour. You know, it just allows for some people to gather around the fire.
Yes, Councillor Grant.
Thank you. I agree with everything you said, Russ, with a little exception, of course. First of all, air quality is really an important item in our community. And by extending the hours of this burning for an entire season like that, I think may cause problems to our air quality. And so as a result, I would ask that we would consider, yes, allowing these people to burn, because I think it's a very, very important thing that we encourage our business. And they, in fact, make Comox a destination to come to, so it's a good thing for our town to have them succeed. However, we do have that other issue of air quality. And so from that point of view, I wonder if we could amend or consider that their burning would certainly extend from September to May, when the others would kick in, but it would be limited to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. That would allow the people there to do what they like to do in the winter time, which is, of course, camping around that big fire, without going over the top, burning any time is considered.
So you wanted to, what days was that again?
Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, from 4 o'clock till 10 o'clock.
If I may, can I clarify, would that be consistent? Currently, they're permitted campfires between May and September each year. So you're
Yes.
saying to have fires at the pavilion fireplace between May and September as well?
Yes,
On Thursday,
yes, I think yes.
Well,
Councillor Grant and then Councillor. Go ahead.
also, yes. So right now, the way it is, they're not limited to, in the summer months, they're not limited to,
Apparently not.
no. So I'm not comfortable with that amendment. I would like to keep my amendment as it states in the option 1 of allowing this fire. Maybe we can change the time from 11 o'clock to 10 o'clock.
Okay, forgive me, I should have called for a seconder on that amendment to the motion. Is there a seconder for Councillor Grant's amendment?
Well, I think that you have to vote
Do you want
on the motion that you have, and then if there's an amendment, it has to be okayed by the guy that made that.
Yeah.
So backing up then the original motion, is there any other comments on the original motion before we go to vote for that? Yeah?
Looking at the photos, it's clearly got a really good chimney and lacking 3 walls. I would like to also include, though, that we specify that they use good quality dry seasoned wood, which I assume they do, but in life I've learned never to assume. And a lot of the problems we see with burning is because people don't use well-seasoned dry wood.
So that's
Is that a friendly? Or should I do that?
Yeah, I think that's a friendly, definitely. That was something that I had thought too. And perhaps we could also add that the business would be providing the wood, so that way we know that the wood is good. You know,
Yes.
and the occupant, or the residents or the campers there would then have to buy it off of the business, perhaps. That way we know that we're getting clean wood.
Rather than people just picking
up
up
off
wood
the
and,
beach. Yeah.
And certainly it's not the
Yeah.
wood.
Who seconded that? Are you good with that?
Okay, just one comment. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the recommendation coming from staff was to consider converting this fireplace to a gas or propane fireplace, which would result in no restrictions and be available all year and would cause no smoke issues or a nuisance to neighbors. So just a reminder, that's something that before we vote, that would be, that's the alternative that's been recommended.
So, yeah, I looked at that option, and that's just, to me, that's not the same thing. There's no natural gas out there, I don't think, and propane, I heated my house with propane for a while. It's really expensive. And then you've got propane bottles and all of that kind of stuff. So, a thought that I had was maybe you could put a high-efficiency wood stove in there, would maybe help with that. But, part of camping is having a campfire, and as you said, they put a beautiful chimney and a thing in there. If the wood's all burnt, is all good wood, I don't think you have to actually say that they have to provide it. I think if you just say that you have to have good dry wood, I think that covers both ends of it, but I'm fine either way, I don't care. But I'd like to see them be able to have a campfire out there and enjoy the whole purpose of camping.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Is there any other comments before I have Shelley read back the motion and make sure?
We didn't make it confusing for you, did we?
If I can just back up a step here. The original motion put on the table, which was moved and I believe seconded, was that, as mentioned in option 1,
That's right.
that the bylaw be amended. That motion is actually unrestricted in terms of when, it's just simply to state that wood burning fires be permitted with no restrictions. Now, if I understand that motion has been amended, or is it still, is that the
Only
motion you want
to
on
the
the
clean wood.
Okay.
So it was amended to
As
say
Councillor,
that they use good
Price
dry,
Okay.
clean
Dry.
wood.
That is actually governed by provincial regulation, that they
Okay.
use clean wood, so
So we don't really
doesn't-
need to do
don't
that.
need to put
Okay.
that in the motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
So the motion on the table is that as in the
correct.
report under option 1.
Yeah, unrestricted.
Are we ready for a vote then?
All right.
All those in favor? Okay, so that motion has carried. I will say, before we end the discussion here, is that the CVRD on their website says they partnered with the Ministry of Environment to conduct particulate matter emissions inventory for the Comox Valley, and it's due for completion this year. The results will guide future decisions according to the website. So we may be coming back to the table, perhaps, to review this again. And That's a good thing for us to know and the public to know as well.
I do have one question with this that just popped into my head. This is just, the winter burning is just for the fireplace, not including all the individual campsites. I want to clarify that.
Individual campfires at individual sites are permitted by bylaw now. They're
Correct, in the
exempted
summer months.
in the summer months between
Right.
May and September.
Right.
Yes.
So now, with this motion, my intent was to allow the fires in the pavilion over the winter months, but does not include the individual campsites.
Over the winter
I
months.
think that was our understanding.
So
Okay.
it won't,
Everybody have
it
a different
won't
understanding?
change
Oh.
the regulations
Good,
that.
okay. I just didn't want to accidentally bring that into the precedent. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Sorry on that. So, we're done with that. Let's move on then. Correspondence, we have a letter requesting support from the town of Comox regarding consent to continue the water service for the regional district Sandwick area.
I would move that recommendation.
Second.
So all those in favor? Discussion? And that concludes our items. Are there any late items to be added to the agenda today? No, we'll move on then. No other delegations. Reports from members of council. Now, we'll start with Councillor Ken Grant.
All right, well, I attended the sewer meeting last week, and at the sewer meeting, it was, they were talking about the building of the Hudson and Greenwood trunk lines to go in. The options that were given, I guess you have to go back to the fact that Courtney owes us some money on the flow meter, and they also, we'd like them to buy the piece of infrastructure that we have in the ground at Knight Road. So
And some of, the calibration, it was sort of in and out of in camera, wasn't it? That was the-
Yeah, but the calibration was all
Yes,
part of
definitely,
this. So the options were to build the line but not hook it up until we get our deal made with them, to tender the project, then have Courtney make the deal as to what they want to pay us on those two issues, and then build the line, or to just make the deal and then build it after. There was quite a bit of discussion on this. Of course, all the Courtney guys decided that they should build the line but not hook it up. It was my thought that that was kind of a silly thing to do, because if you never make your deal, then you've got all the infrastructure sitting in the ground and it never gets used. They didn't see it that way. It can get problematic, because I think that the development community will now see that the line is sitting right there, ready to go, and not hooked up. So I think that, personally, I think that was the wrong decision to make. I think that they should have, we felt that they should tender that project and make the deal and then put the infrastructure in the ground. It's just good business practice to do it that way, in my opinion, but they chose not to. So that didn't work. So they're going to go ahead and build it and then make their deal with us, I guess, at some point. On the water committee, it came up about going down to Victoria and who would go to Victoria, whether Cumberland should be invited to that meeting or not. Made our points, and they decided that Cumberland should go to the meeting. So we lost that. So I guess we have a decision to make as to what we want to do on that at Comox. Since that happened, the ministers have sent back that they're not going to entertain any delegations from communities until after the election, but we could go and meet with staff down there if we wanted to. So that's kind of where that is. Another thing that came up was some of the options to fix the problem up in Perseverance Creek came up, and they arranged anywhere from a very small amount, which didn't really work very well, all the way up to about $7 to $10 million to fix that. It's my understanding that Cumberland is looking at a solution that would possibly solve about 50% of the problem up there, which, in my opinion, that's not adequate. Apparently you can combine some of these to make it work a little bit better, but there was one option on there that would fix about 90% of the issue. So I think we want it fixed, and we want it fixed properly, and I don't think we want any part of that bill, because we didn't cause any of this problem. So another report that we got was on the NTUs in Comox Lake. It was clear from that report that Perseverance Creek is the main culprit to what's going on. We've had 114 days of boil water advisories, and only 34 of those days have we been over 2 NTU. So you can see that if you can fix the issue in Perseverance Creek, then a lot of times we're not going to get these boil water advisories. So it becomes more and more clear every time we do it. And, 2 NTU, we were looking for some leniency on that because 1 is the magic number. So we're not that far over very often, but if you go over the 1, then of course you pay. So that's the deal. So that's what went on there. And regional district, we actually had a citizens group from Union Bay come and, as a delegation, wanting to disband the U-bid, and they were actually looking at what it would take to join the regional district. Interesting. They represent a reasonably big number of the Union Bay citizens, certainly not all of them. So there's some contention down on that end, and what will happen there, I think, is we'll just gather the information and say, here's what would happen for you to actually do that. And I mean, we don't want to, I don't think we want to take on being champions of any of those kinds of things, but if they come and ask and they hit the right marks, well then there's an option. So there's a lot going on down in Union Bay, we learned. And then on Saturday night, I got to coach the Mayor's Cup Comox winning hockey team. I think it was the coaching that did it, because we won. Yeah, and of course the trophy, Shelley didn't even want to touch it, is right there. So that's
This is the humble coach award.
This is the humble coach award. Yeah, well, I didn't get asked to play, so that was the most humbling part. But of course, the first line was the line of Ives, Ives, and Ives. So Paul and his 2 sons, I don't think they scored or did anything, but certainly they were on the winning team. So there you go. So Courtney will owe us. Maybe they'll pay us the money they owe us. Some of those other things as part of the reward. And that's my report.
Thank you for that, and well done on the ice. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, briefly had a meeting with the Salvation Army today, and had one with the Community Justice Center, and just interesting stuff happening.
Thank you. Councillor Swift.
Okay, well, I attended the Sewage Commission meeting, and Councillor Grant has filled us in on that one. I attended the solid waste meeting, and as you probably all have heard, the grant for $5.5 million and change for an organics facility in Campbell River has just occurred. It's going to be interesting to see how the whole project unfolds, because we were meant to all participate in it, and we will have to see if that makes sense for us when the time comes. So while it's good news for Campbell River, we'll see how it pans out for us. I attended the regional hospital meeting, and they're very excited about the completion of the hospital. They keep saying on time and on budget. And for those of you that are attending the AVICC, there's going to be a tour available of the hospital there. And I believe ours is identical, except perhaps in the color scheme, so there you go. A little bit orange. I attended the Philburg board meeting, and they're getting ready for their AGM, and there's going to be quite a turnover of board members there, so it will be interesting to see how they move forward. And I attended the Eco Symposium last night and found it a little bit distressing. I don't know if anybody else attended the sessions today, but certainly it was good information, but very thought-provoking. And lastly, 2 days ago, Councillor Grant and Councillor Price and myself hosted the Girl Guides in council chambers, and we actually had a good evening with them, and they did a... Yes, they were hoping for leadership roles of women in the community. So we did a mock debate and council meeting, and the topic was whether we should have a water park or not, and the questions are really good. I was really impressed with how thoughtful They were, and some good critical thinking, and yeah, it was fun.
You shook up for the cookies, that's what.
And we each got a box of cookies at the end, which was a great treat. So, and that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Swell. Councillor Price, please.
Yes, and I would just like to echo, it was a really fun event, and they took it very seriously. It was really well behaved, and I think we'll have at least one councillor out of them. And they really looked to staff. We had all the staff set up, and it was interesting how they looked to staff for us. And I'd just like to thank both of you, and particularly Councillor Swift, who produced goodie bags for them, made up of guided tours and Comox and all pins and anything you can think of in our
Is it
freebie.
legal to bribe future voters?
No, it was fun.
It was a great deal of fun. I also attended the Comox Valley Sewage Commission, and Councillor Grant gave a good report. We did also receive the outline of the stages of number 2 pump station, and there is going to be some community open houses directed for the community on looking at how it will design questions and issues like that. The Water Committee, yeah, it was very interesting, all the stuff on turbidity, and certainly as Councillor Grant pointed out, Perseverance Creek is definitely the major contributor, largely because it went between the Crookshank and Perseverance Creek, but it's a lot nearer to where we get our water out of, and also the clay. And that magic 1 number, if we had some leniency, we would have only had 4 boil water orders rather than 9, because 9 were only just over 1. Only 4 of the 9 were over 2, and the rest were just over 1. So I think that's something that we need to be working on. We're working hard to move ahead on this, and it is good that there are some solutions out there that we can work on, because even once a filtration plant is built, having good quality water dramatically reduces the running costs, because you still have to take that sediment out. And yeah, I think that was the main for the Water Committee. And Committee of the Whole, the Agricultural Awareness Centre and Agriplex have now amalgamated into one building. We had 2 groups looking, the Comox Valley Exhibition Centre and the Comox Valley Farmers Institute both had separate buildings that they wanted, and they have now come together in a multi-purpose event centre, which at the moment is looking at having 11.5 million is what the price tag. And they'd have half the floor cement and half dirt, and it would be for a lot of different uses. We also had a presentation on the Comox Valley Frequent Transit Corridor Study, and we had a delegation from BC Transit, and they're identifying corridors that allow for a frequent transit corridor. There'll be the other routes, that the frequent one is one where you won't need a schedule, that you'll be looking at buses every quarter of an hour within peak times, which they defined as 7 till 7, and then half an hour apart outside those times. And yeah, so the transit exchange locations are still looking at next to the golf course, which I'm not very sure that that's the best place for it, but there'll be more discussion with staff.
Lawsuits over, somebody's going to get hit with golf balls. They didn't take that seriously very much. I already know that's going to happen.
Only if you're playing.
Yeah.
And there is going to be 900 hours added to Handy Dart for rural areas, but what they came down to is going to be Handy Dart Light. So it's going to be actually a bus service that people, it will be the small bus that everyone can use, but you can phone in and you can have it come to your curb. It won't actually come to your door, but it will actually come to your curbside if you have mobility issues. So yeah.
Excellent service.
And the regional office building concept is moving forward into the design stage. There is still the potential for the school board and MOTI to join, which would add 2 more floors if that happened. And with early 2019 for occupancy. And at no additional cost to the taxpayers because we already pay huge lease fees. So yeah, it's definitely a win situation. And I also, I was part of the ABICC teleconference on our convention organising, which is rapidly approaching, I think 3 weeks away. Lots on the agenda. And also, as we sent out the CAMS AGM, Saturday, the 25th of March, 2 o'clock with Judy Hagan. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor Price. And Councillor Grant.
Thank you. Actually, my report is very simple because it seems most of the meetings that I have attended, Councillor Swift attended also. And she's given a great report in that regard, except that I'd like to add one footnote, and that is again coming back to our Girl Guides, because we do thank Councillor Swift. She did a great job of organizing us. And out of it, I would say that we have more than one councillor, because if that's what we have to look forward to in the future, is the kind of leadership that I saw coming from these girls, we'll be in good hands. And also, the leaders actually learned something from all that we had to teach, so it was good all around. So again, thank you.
And it was
Thank
a
you,
full
thank you.
measure.
And
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
I think we got more out of it than the kids did.
Thank you.
And that ends my report. Thank you.
Is that a message to the acting mayor that he should be replaced by one of the students? Briefly, my report is attended a volunteer Comox Valley art mural fundraiser that they held downtown. Volunteer Comox Valley, for most of you, is kind of a coordinating group here in the valley that connects volunteer agencies and newcomers to the valley in particular. Great organization, and they had a successful fundraiser, including young people to be involved in doing the artwork. March 7th, attended a Comox Valley Social Planning Committee meeting. March 9th, along with other councillors, I'm sure, we're trying to attend public forums held by different candidates running in the provincial election, and I think that's a wise idea. I know I've seen some of my colleagues there at meetings, particularly the ones held in Comox. And there was a Green Party held one at the Comox First Nations. There was one held on the weekend at the Low Red Church by the NDP health critic, and the Liberal candidate has held some open houses as well. So I know, along with other councillors, we're trying to keep abreast of platforms and that. It's hard when you go in as a councillor because you get recruited right away, and you have to stand here generally to hear the platforms and conventions, but I do think it's a good idea, and I'm pleased to see my colleagues are doing that as well. Attended the Eco Symposium last night at the Filberg. It was well attended, and I was especially pleased to see staff from the City of Courtenay and the CVRD yesterday front and center and involved in it. It certainly gave the impression, and the tone of it was that we're all in this together. It's not us against them, groups like that, and it was nice to see that the sponsorships on the wall, on the slide, was the City of Courtenay, the Village of Cumberland, the Town of Comox, all supported it. So I think that was the intent of our support of it there. Hopefully it leads somewhere in some good constructive discussions. Finally, Chamber of Commerce held their mixer yesterday, and I attended briefly. And last but not least, beware of the Ides of March, which is today.
Oh, that's right.
We'll have Caesar salad.
We have two distinguished members of the media here who have been behaving in the background. Are there any media questions?
Actually, yeah, we do have one. Maybe from staff, Your Worship. Could you just clarify, with regards to the pavilion, was that previously allowed during the campfire season, or not at all?
It was not.
It was not allowed at all?
No.
And so under the motion passed tonight, it will be allowed year-round, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Right. clarification needed?
I thought it was allowed. They were allowed to burn in the summer. In that pavilion? No? So it's not been allowed to
It's
burn
it's
in the
not been
last...
used until now, it's my understanding.
But you have, like, I understand that it has been used in the summertime.
Don't admit to anything. Take
I
the
think the mistake was in asking. Now you get the bureaucratic answer.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any questions from the members of the public? No?
No question. I just want to say thank you.
And then I'll call for adjournment.
second.
Meeting adjourned. All those in favor?